robot said, and you look like Wonder Woman. I'm like, what? You're like a goddess.
Well, thank you, darling.
Jeez. I was like, have you ever met Jane?
We have never met in person.
It is so nice to meet you.
It is very nice to meet you. Yes. I like a tall chick.
Yeah. How tall are you,
Well,
my dear?
short.
Well, in the
chicks are
heels,
cool.
like 6'4".
Oh, but you're a 6-footer then.
Yeah.
I'm a 6-footer too.
There
High
we
five
go.
on that, sis.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. No. Just me. 5'3", guys. Short people are cool too.
Yeah.
Well, take us back. Did you always have a passion for marketing? Did you know this was your path?
No, I did not. My parents are originally from Ghana, in West Africa. So being first-generation American, they wanted me to only have one of three careers. I could be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. That was it.
God.
You know what I mean? Marketing was not on the... Yeah, exactly. So in college, I was pre-med. Then I graduated with also a degree in African-American history and English. I mean, I was just doing all the things.
That's cool. That's what you're supposed to do in college.
I mean, you just explore, right?
Yeah.
But then I wanted to take a little bit of time before going to medical school to try and, figure out what I wanted to do. And I thought New York City is big, bad city. I want to go, check it out, see what's happening. Yeah, so I went there and discovered marketing.
How?
Yeah.
What?
So here's the thing. Now, I'm a hustler, okay? So I went to New York, no money. I had one friend there. I was sleeping on her couch. And I would take jobs at temp agencies to sort of make ends meet and feed myself, right?
Yeah.
So literally on the corner of 125th Street and Broadway, there was a phone booth. This is how long ago that was. It wasn't a cell phone, okay? There was a phone booth, and I would call into the temp agency every single morning. I would start calling them at 7:30, call them every 15 minutes until I got a job. And it took 6 weeks for me every single day calling and then getting a job finally. It was like the golden day when I got a job to be the receptionist at Spike's advertising agency. So I get there and I'm only supposed to answer the phones. Now, I see he's carrying around something under his arm, coming back and forth in the office. It happened to be the script for Bamboozled. And I asked him if I could read it. Being an African-American studies, literature person, I thought I could perhaps give him some tips.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love it. Bold though.
Yeah, and naive.
No.
But it was perfect because it's like, I think today I probably would have hesitated, right? I would have been like, oh, Spike, how can you even give him any kind of tips at all? But at the time I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna do him a favor. So I took, you know what I mean? So I took the script, I marked it up, gave it back to him. He looked at me like I had lost my whole mind. And no, but he looked at it and said, okay, actually, you make some good points. You should stay here for a while.
Oh
That's
my
how
God.
I got my job.
But that's what I find incredible. But I think things I did too. Whenever I was 19, I was I moved to across the state. I lived here, didn't know anybody, lived on a mattress, in things you do when you're young. I'm like, I don't know if I do that now. Sounds like a real bad situation.
You know better now.
Yeah, it sounds hard up. Yeah,
so much better to do it then.
Yeah. Did you do crazy stuff like that when you were young?
Flop houses with, a bunch of friends putting on shows, and we'd all live together in, horrible little homes.
Good times. Well, so then 10 years ago, everything shifted in your life. So explain what happened.
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, I felt like I was really at a high in my career. I was at PepsiCo. I had worked with Beyonce on the deal with the NFL to put her on the Super Bowl halftime show. I mean, we were everything was popping.
Yeah.
And I had been married for about 10 years, and my husband, Peter, was diagnosed with cancer in May of 2013. Oh, wow. And our daughter was 4. We were both doing very well in our career, so you don't really think anything bad is ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And by December, he was dead.
Oh, God.
Wow.
It was a very fast terminal cancer that we were not prepared for. I certainly wasn't. And I really was unprepared to be a single mom, to try and figure out life, by myself, all the things. But I also have to be honest that up until then, our marriage had been good, but then we hit some rocky parts too.
Yeah.
Like many marriages.
Yeah.
We were
I don't know what you're speaking of.
Right, well. Yeah, exactly.
Tell me.
Yeah, so
it happens.
It happens. We were separated for a few years and never got all the way to the divorce. And then when he was diagnosed as terminal, we reconciled. To get through the last bits of his life.
Yeah.
Before he died.
Also, I bet for your daughter as well.
Yes. All the things. I wanted to be able to have her share, the moment with us.
Yeah.
And I got some really great advice from a friend then who said, tell her the truth.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even though she was 4. Because you don't want to do that, right? As a mom.
Yeah, but like, what are you supposed to say?
I mean,
yeah.
right, you use like soft words, but the advice I got, which by the way, I've used up until now, is that you tell the truth.
Yeah.
You know, use the right words. Like if you say, oh, daddy's sick,
yeah.
well, every time like somebody has a cold or something else and you think, oh, they're sick, she's gonna think something terrible is about to happen.
Yeah.
So we use the right words, you know, and when I had to
Absolutely.
tell her that he was gone, I said exactly that.
Oof, that's hard.
That is.
After losing your husband, you said you had real conversations with your daughters.
Yeah.
So how did that shape you as a mama?
Oh my gosh.
Those are
Well,
hard conversations. I think you all, if you have kids at mine are 6 and 8, they are terrified of death right now.
Right.
They just, you know, it's like
Yeah.
people have died like in their lives and they're terrified of it. They think anytime I leave on a plane, anytime I do anything, they're like, are you gonna come back? And I'm like,
Right.
I'm honest, I'm like, I don't know, but let's not wish the worst. Like, right? Like, I don't know.
No,
Yeah, I'm hoping I do. Like, yeah.
But I think in the back of our minds, we all consider that, right? We all
Yeah.
consider things. And maybe we don't want to talk about it exactly, which is why I think it's so important for us to be that much more brave and courageous about it, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a morbid thing to do. I actually think it's
I
very
don't either.
inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
But the light for us has been that Lael, who's my daughter, she's now 13 and a
such a
half.
beautiful name.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Lael,
Yes,
that's beautiful.
Lael. And I told her, I was like, look, you're gonna become my partner in this, okay? In raising you.
Yeah.
And she looked at me like, okay. But I was like, no, you're gonna be my partner in this.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me the things you need.
Be honest.
And I will tell you the things I need, and we're gonna work it out together. It has given her a voice in our house and a voice in our relationship. And so I feel that it's
It also
it's a real
teaches her
benefit.
how to have relationships like that, to
That's
be
right.
honest.
Yes.
What boundaries are created. Yeah, that's
and what you
beautiful.
need.
Yeah.
What you need.
Because sometimes people aren't good at saying that. They're coddled their whole life and they
right.
aren't taught that. And then all of a sudden you're in college and you're like, have these unhealthy relationships and they don't know how to deal with it.
Look, I need her to have a voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I imagine your daughter's definitely gonna have a voice. I read your resume. I was like, so you speak about being the only black person in the room. So have you seen that change at all, or no? Still needs progress.
We need a lot of help. You
Yeah.
know? There's a lot of help.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a time when we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion and what we're going to do to change things, but the action. We need action.
Seeing it actually implemented.
Yes, we need action. We need more people of color in boardrooms, in the senior seats, not just in middle management. So that's what I'm trying to
I
do.
agree. I love that.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I mean,
you know,
but don't we make the boardrooms just that much more fabulous? I mean, look at this. Like, it's just.
I would go to that job. I'm like, I'd want to go to that meeting. I'm like, what are we talking about? So let's talk about the book. So it's called The Urgent Life, and you open up about your life a lot, which I think is incredibly brave, because it's hard to do that. I don't know why I would do that. So why did you want to write it now? Why did you feel like it was important?
You know, there's along my career, as you could imagine, people have told me to write the marketing book. You know, the how to be the marketing executive book.
Yeah.
But I have also found that we have been taught to be like two different people, right? You have the personal side and you have the professional side.
Yeah.
But that's actually not real. That's not a true thing. You're one person.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to show up as your whole self in a job if you're leaving some of it on the side. You know, especially given the fact that we've all been through so much. You know, everybody goes through loss. Everybody goes through trauma. Sometimes it's not maybe what I have been through, but you've been through something.
Different challenges,
And how to show up at work like that. You know, are you supposed to leave it outside? How are you supposed to manage? You know, and so part of the reason I wanted to write the book right now is because of what we've all, is the whole global world been through in the last 3 years. We've all suffered a lot. You know, and how did you show up? Not just at work, but like in your community, at school, like in the different areas that we're in, and that perhaps we can be more honest about what we're going through and therefore be able to help each other some more.
Because chances are everybody else in that room has got their own different version of your private hell.
Okay,
like, you know, like
exactly.
everybody's got something going on. I agree with that as well. It's hard to compartmentalize. That was actually a big thing for me. Like even just going through divorce and like doing this job and showing up and smiling and like, you know, you're supposed to do something, but it's like, I'm a human, like, you know, and like, I'm glad the show isn't live. But it's a hard thing to ask people. It's a hard thing to ask of people without like saying, well, no, you're allowed to be human in a moment. Or in all the moments.